What is up, everybody? This is your boy Is Nefarious, and I am here with another edition of your Premier Madden League Fantasy Report, where we play fantasy football based on the Premier Madden League and their statistics throughout the season. For those of you that don't know, the Premier Madden League is one of the most immersive Madden leagues out there. We throw out a bunch of content. We got our own website, premiermadden.com. We got all kinds of stuff that make us unique, like our draft class, our training camps, things like that. If you'd like to apply or if you like more information, go to premiermadden.com. If you'd like to apply, there on the information bar it has apply here. So just hit apply. You're gonna fill out a form. The form, after it's filled out, is going to get directly sent to our commissioner via email, and then he'll put together a tournament, um, or you know, reach out to you and let you know, hey, you got a tryout game. But most of the time, it's going to be the tournaments. That's what he wants to do going forward. Not sure when the next tournament's going to be, but I do know that he is looking to. Well, we are looking to replace someone. Um, so if you want to play Madden, want to play in a sim type league, with rules and also a lot of content, and we really bring Madden to life, go ahead and apply, and hopefully you get into the tournament, and then from there you could possibly get into the league. Let's dive right into the fantasy report. If you don't know, first we're going to start with our weekly pick'em. Everybody gets to choose a general lineup: QB, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and a kicker and defense. So what happens is the only rule that we have in the league is that you cannot select anybody from your team or the opposing team that week. So if I'm the Saints, so I can't select a Saints player, or let's say I'm playing the Raiders, I can't select the Raiders player as well. So that's the only rule we have. But it's basically PPR, 1 point per reception, uh, basic fantasy scoring system, nothing too fancy, no bonuses, none of that stuff. Just basic fantasy scoring, basic lineups, just that one rule that I mentioned. This is our pick'em results from this week. As you can see, I ended up in first with 175.3. The newcomer natural ended up in second at 172.5, and then we had Burn in third at 140.4, and then we had Fallen in fourth at 109.72. So, um, not a characteristic day for Fallen. Usually 150 is his minimum. At 109, I haven't seen that since like week one of the first season when we first started doing this. As far as natural newcomer first lineup, he almost wins it. Just loses by 3 points. I think I was able to edge him out based on my defense and my flex position. Um, but yeah, it's real close. Good lineup from him and good lineup from me. Let's take a look at my lineup. As you can see, I had Drew Lock as my quarterback. He got 12.6 points. Then I had Jonathan Taylor, back to back Broncos. Jonathan Taylor had a good game though, 31.7. Then I had Melvin Gordon the third. He got 8.9 points for me. So Q really didn't run the ball as effectively as usual. Then my wide receiver one, I had Paris Campbell with 30.5 points. Then my wide receiver two, I had Tyreek Hill with 21.1 points. My tight end was Evan Ingram, had a down week, 3.4 points. And then I had AJ Dillon as my flex. He had 34.1 points. Then I had Jake Elliott with 4 points. And then the Broncos defense got me 29 points. And one thing to mention with Evan Ingram, he did get injured, so that's why you see that low score. I believe he's out like 6 weeks. I just did the league report, and he was on that new injury report. So, tough hit for the Giants in that offense. Evan Ingram really, him and Saquon Barkley were 100% the offense there. So it's a tough hit there. As you could see, I got the 175.3 as my final. So a good week for me. I'm going to use that +1 and Alex Anzalone like I've been so far. Let's dive right into our team of the week. And first, we're going to start with the quarterback. And as I mentioned, I believe last week on the fantasy report, Jacoby Brissett and that Colts offense has gone more pass heavy, kind of, you know, taking a page out of the Bears uses book Mole. He's gone more pass heavy to work on that part of his game during the regular season. He knows if he needs to rely on a run, he has it there. But he's trying to develop a passing game, and this is a good way to do it. I mean, he had a really good week, 319 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 15 rushing yards. So that gave him 12.76 on the passing yards, 20 points on the touchdowns, and then 1.5 points on the rushing yards for a total of 32.46. So a really good week from Jacoby Brissett in the Colts passing game. Let's dive right into the running back of the week, and we got my flex spot guy, the rookie A.J. Dillon, who had a solid week. 153 yards on the ground for 15.3 points. Then we had 3 rushing touchdowns for 18 points, 1 reception for 1 point, and then -2 receiving yards for -0.2 points, which gave him a grand total of 34.1 points. So a really good week from him. AJ Dillon started off slow as a rookie, but he's starting to pick up speed. The big power back is trying to make noise this season, and so far so good. With 34.1 in week 6 already, so he's starting to catch his groove. Let's jump into our wide receiver. So we got Amari Cooper here, the Dallas wide receiver. He had 2 rushing yards for 0.2 points. Then he had 6 receptions for 6 points, and then 253 receiving yards for 25.3 points, and then 4 receiving touchdowns for 55.5 points. I think that's the most receiving touchdowns I've seen from a wide receiver ever since we started doing this. That's a really good week. He was definitely relying on Amari Cooper and his superstar ability to carry his offense this week. I think he still lost 33-31. I believe this is the week he lost to the Eagles, but Amari Cooper absolutely went off. Let's jump right into the tight end of the week, and we got a newcomer, um, used to play on the Jets, now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris Herndon, the fourth. Not very athletic tight end. I believe he's only 81, 82 speed, something like that. But he found ways to get open. Low scoring week for the tight ends. He had 4 receptions for 4 points, 65 yards for 6.5 points, and then 1 receiving touchdown for 6 points, which gave him a total of 16.5 points. So, like I said, really bad week for tight ends. 16.5, I think, is the lowest we've ever had on the team of the week, for mostly every position besides kicker. Um, and we don't even do kicker, so I think this is the lowest we ever had. Um, Not even the defense got below 16 or 17 points, so 16 and a half. Shout out to Chris Herndon, though. Herndon on making the list, and shout out to the Bucks user having a player make the list. Let's jump into the defense of the week, and we have the Atlanta Falcons defense, who absolutely went off against the Raiders. Only allowed 2 points, which gave them 7 points. Had 3 sacks, which gave them 3 points, and then they forced 11 turnovers. So the Raiders reverted back to their old ways, chucking it downfield, throwing 11 interceptions, giving the Falcons 22 points. And then you had 1 safety for 2 points, and then 2 defensive touchdowns for 12 points, which gave them a grand total of 46 points. Like I said, that defense, I mean, that offense for the Raiders was atrocious this week. Uh, it was supposed to be the game of the week, but 47-2. Nobody saw that coming. Kurt reverted to his chucking it all over the place ways, and it really didn't work out, as you could see with that 11 number on the turnovers. That's just something you can't have and try to win in this league. Let's jump into the fantasy pick'ems. So for any newcomers of fantasy pick'ems, It's basically I'm looking into next week, week 7, and picking the best matchup for the pickums, like what kind of lineup you would go with. The only thing I don't really talk about is the kickers. We got quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and defense. So let's start with the quarterbacks. My three quarterbacks, I got Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, and Jacoby Brissett. Uh, Patrick Mahomes has a good matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. This is the type of game where the Atlanta Falcons are going in feeling real good about themselves, especially after beating the Raiders 47-2. Um, the uh, the Chargers, the Chiefs user King Mike is really good. He's a really good user, really smart, and he has one of the best passing games in the game because you got Tyreek Hill, you got Patrick Mahomes, you got all kinds of weapons. McCall Hardman, who's not high overall, but he's got a lot of speed. So I could see, you know, Patrick Mahomes and that offense really taking advantage of the Atlanta Falcons when they're not really, you know, like they didn't have that type of matchup beforehand to get them ready. They kind of walked all over the Raiders, and yes, it's a nice win. It's a moral boost, but you need those tough games to get you ready for another tough game following. And I think this is where the Chiefs are going to catch them sleeping. And I think Patty Mahomes is going to be the main reason for that and that passing offense, especially after he traded Desmond Trufant. There's nobody that's going to match up with Tyreek Hill. If anything, he's going to have to hope his safeties can. So Patrick Mahomes is a good matchup, I think. Let's jump into running backs. I'll only talk about maybe one or two based on the position. So let's jump into running backs. So we got uh, Alvin Kamara, AJ Dillon, and David Johnson. Um, we'll talk about Alvin Kamara, my guy, with against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not saying this just because I'm the Saints user and it's the game plan or anything, but when you're going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you got a star player like Alvin Kamara who hasn't had the best season so far, this is the type of game, type of moral boost game that you look for a star player like that. Going up against that Tampa Bay Bucks defense, they're not the best, they're not the greatest. I could see Alvin Kamara having his wake up week this far into the season. We're in week 7 already. This would be week 7 against the Bucks. This could be the wake up game where he starts going. He starts getting it going. He starts, finding holes, gaining yardage, hits the end zone. I think this is going to be a good matchup for him, even in the passing game with a PPR. It's going to be a really solid matchup for Alvin Kamara, so I definitely would go with him. Now let's talk about the wide receivers. So we got Jerry Jeudy, my number one. Then we got Anthony Miller, and then Amari Cooper with the Dallas Cowboys. I want to talk about Anthony Miller. It seems that Mitch Trubisky and that offense, Mole's offense, is really falling in love with uh, the person that is Anthony Miller. He's been really good for him. I believe he's gotten superstar, so he's got a couple superstar abilities, and one is slot apprentice, and I think the other one's jukebox or something like that. So he's having a lot of fun with Anthony Miller, just trying to feed him the ball on short routes and having him make moves and gain a bunch of yardage. So Anthony Miller is going to be a good play every week. He's going to be an excellent play this week going up against that Houston Texans defense. I still think they're the worst passing defense so far in the league. I know last season they were the worst passing defense because I would kind of follow their matchup week to week. I don't know about this season, but I believe they are. I'll have to double check that. But the user, Anthony Miller against and Mole against that user and Mali Rojo, it's a mismatch just like last week against me with the Saints. Um, Anthony Miller had a good week there too. I don't think he hit the end zone, but he still had his receptions and his receiving yards. And given how it's a PPR league, if you got somebody that's going to get fed the ball you're gonna take those points. So 6 receptions, that's 6 points plus whatever yardage and touchdowns he has. So Anthony Miller is gonna be a good matchup based on who he's playing and how much he's using Anthony Miller currently and recently in his offense. Let's talk about tight ends. So we got 3 tight ends. We got Ian Thomas, we got Tabaki Hodges, and then we've got OJ Howard against the Broncos. Um, all of them are tough matchups. The only easy matchup the only matchup I went with was Tabaki Hodges and against the Bucks. Ian Thomas is a tough play against that Bills defense that likes to press hard and then force you to beat them over the top. And then you got the OJ Howard with the Jets, and he's going up against the Broncos, who's also a good user. So that's a tough matchup. I guess the best matchup in this would either be Bucky Hodges, but if I'm not going my own team, I'm gonna go with OJ Howard. I think it's gonna be tougher for Ian Thomas to find space against that Bills defense. The Bills user is pretty good. Fallen's a good user, but I think the way that the Jets passing is their passing game, I think OJ Howard's gonna have a lot more success against that user. So I would go with OJ Howard. Really nothing. It's just a gut feeling with OJ Howard. There was really nothing that pointed out like Anthony Miller or Alvin Kamara or Patrick Mahomes. There was nothing that really pointed out. Go with OJ Howard. I think this would be a good bounce back game for him. Let's talk about our defense. So we got 3 here. We got the Bears defense, the Redskins defense, and then the KC defense. Um, I'm not going to talk about KC because it's a lot to do with the same with Patrick Mahomes. The same reasoning behind Patrick Mahomes is the same reasoning behind the KC defense. Kind of gonna catch the Falcons sleeping a bit, I think. Let's talk about the Redskins against the Browns. So the Redskins has a really good defense. The Browns have been terrible this year. I believe they only have 2 wins on the season. Coming off a demoralizing loss against the Jacksonville Jaguars computer team. I I think the struggle is gonna continue. They try new things on offense. I believe they're bringing some read option in, some stuff like that. A lot of misdirection. They're trying to change stuff on offense, and I think that's gonna hurt them in the long run. And I think the Redskins defense and how well he plays is going to feast on his indecisiveness and his getting to know what he's running, because I don't think he fully knows what he's running yet. Even though it's weeks in, I don't think he has a full grasp on it. When he does, I think it might be dangerous. But right now, he's still in the learning phase of it. He doesn't. I don't think he has his go-to plays yet. He's been struggling offensively, so I think the Redskins with that user is going to have a really good week, and I believe that's a good matchup to go with. That's going to pretty much do it for this week. I hope you enjoyed. I tried to shorten it up a bit. Last week we went over 20 minutes. I'm trying to keep it between 15 and 20. That seems to be a sweet spot. So, thank you all for watching. Hopefully, you continue watching, and I hope you enjoy all the content I'm putting out for you.